Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. Is there a card of a player that you've been looking for forever and just for whatever reason you cannot find it because either it's just very, very expensive or extremely rare? For me, there are cards that I've kind of been looking for maybe 20 plus years, and today I'm going to tell you about one of these cards. It is this right here. This is a 1941 play ball Barney McCosky, and it's not the card that I was looking for 20 years. This card is not that difficult to come across. The autograph, on the other hand, is pretty difficult. Specifically, I wanted a vintage card from 1941 that was autographed, and I found this at an eBay auction, and I didn't even think twice. I just said, "Thank you very much. I will take that." I was really excited, but more than that, this is a card that I've been looking for the better part of 25 years, without any exaggeration. This set is one of the reasons why I really wanted to dive into the histories of the players from this era. The the artwork is amazing in the 1941 play ball set, and I'll show you the back of it. You guys have seen these, I'm sure. There may be some novices here who haven't really seen these cards. William Barney McCosky is the player that I want to tell you guys about today. I think that he's got a really interesting story. He's kind of forgotten about today. Some people would really kind of consider him a common player, if you will. But in his day, in like 1939, 1940, 41, he was a star player, and he was a very much a household name. What was kind of interesting too is that his autograph really hasn't changed since the 1930s and 40s. And actually, I have another card of his. I think it's a premium, but I'm not entirely sure. But I'll show you what that looks like. It is this right here. This is a 1940 Michigan Sports Service. I think it's a premium. These don't come up often at all, and I've really never have seen these at shows. I have a couple of these. In fact, they are kind of on the expensive side as well. Uh, Besides that, the 1940 Detroit Tigers went to the World Series, and they lost against the Reds, which is another team I really like. I really do. I'm a big fan of the 1940s Cincinnati Reds, even before that too. So like 1930s with Powell Crosley Jr. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a card. I wish he did. He's the owner of the team, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. However, getting back to this gentleman right here, if you can see the autograph, it's not much different than this autograph here. Let me see if you guys can see that right there. Yeah, so his autograph really didn't change much. And again, I love the design of these. Again, you don't really see these too often, and when you do, they're pretty expensive. As the other thing too, I'm going to mention really briefly. You can see uh, my reflection in this. And I've said this before, but it's one of the reasons why I really don't like this medium is because I'm looking at myself, looking back, and it causes like and I usually don't do that during normal conversations, but it's really distracting. It's really distracting. I I don't like the medium at all, though I do kind of enjoy doing what I'm doing here because otherwise I wouldn't be doing this. I kind of like showing you guys cards and the histories of the players and all that. That I do enjoy, and I like writing quite a bit because otherwise I wouldn't be a writer either if I didn't enjoy it. And why would you do something you don't enjoy, right? So I'm kind of like this a little bit, but this is not the medium that I would prefer, or maybe it's just something I don't like about seeing myself. Anyway, as I said, it's very, very distracting, and I'm not digging it one iota at all. Anyway, getting back to Barney McCosky here, the 1941 play ball set is absolutely fascinating to me. I have always enjoyed this set. It was one of the first card sets that I started to collect as a teenager, and I used to go to the Halls auctions here in Massachusetts and pick up these cards all the time. Um, Most of them are pretty affordable, to tell you the truth. This card itself is pretty affordable, and I actually have this card too that's unautographed. But again, it was the autograph on this specific card that I was looking for, and it was just by happenstance. I've been looking for it again for like 25 years and nothing. And he does, or he did, I should say, because he's no longer around. He's in the field of dreams. But he did sign quite a bit, so his autograph isn't that expensive. On a card, it's a little bit different though, because you can have a lot of 3x5s and 8x10s and whatever of a player, but um, that number decreases on a vintage card, and especially when you're getting towards the player's playing career when he signed that card. And this actually, I think this was done well after, probably in the 80s, I would have to guess. The Sharpie, which this kind of, I think this is what this is. I haven't looked at it under a microscope. Um, I will because I do. That's how I roll. The Sharpies actually came out in 1964, but the Sharpies themselves, uh, they kind of like tend to degrade over time. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that collectors are facing now, especially the modern collectors who are, again, have modern cards that are autographed. Um, there's something about the Sharpie on these modern cards that have faded, especially in the 1990s. And so I always try to keep these specific cards in a dark area and really try not to show them at all. So, anyway, I wanted to get into Barney McCosky's career and his life. I find it really interesting, and again, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to like kind of study the players and the era in which they played at the 1940s, and I thought it was really interesting. I can remember when I first started to collect these cards at auction, they were pretty cheap. So I think I was paying like $10 or so for each card, and for commons, I mean that's still not bad. You can still get these cards really cheap. I was really curious to know who these guys were. There's a lot of cards today or players from the 1940s and 1930s that um, they're not talked about, and they have some amazing stories. And like I say, that every player, every person has a great story to tell. And I thought that Barney McCosky has a great story. So I'm going to go through a couple of articles with you guys, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say after this as well in the comment section below. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because this is really going to be very interesting. At least I think so. So stick around for a bit. Thank you. This is from the Austin American, August 7th, 1940, Austin, Texas. Barney McCosky, Detroit's best since Ty Cobb, spurs on Surprising Tigers by Harry Grayson. Chicago. In relating the surprising Detroit story, don't overlook Barney McCosky. Old timers will tell you this homegrown athlete is the Tigers' best outfielder since Tyrus Raymond Cobb. The Lithuanian Irishman has a lot of Tyrus Cobb's playing habits. He covers center field like a tent, gives the converted Henry Greenberg invaluable assistance in left field. He is the fastest man on the club. The only other speed burner with the Bengals is the right fielder Pete Fox. McCoskey is the third best batter in the American League at the moment with a mark of 350. He leads the loop in total hits, 130 odd. He sets the pace in triples. Only Ted Williams of the Red Sox tops him in runs scored. McCoskey was a basketball as well as a baseball player at Southwestern High School in Detroit. The baseball field at Southwestern High has a short right field fence, beyond which is a house McCoskey peppered with line drives until the owner complained to school authorities. The complaint was placated, but returned a few weeks later to say that while having dinner the night before, a ball came through the window and fell in his plate of soup. He was promised it would never happen again because that the young McCoskey's last game and nobody else in the prep league could hit a ball that far. McCoskey, a left-handed hitter, has a stance and swing strikingly similar to that of Charlie Gehringer, his idol and model. For years, McCoskey, the kid, went to Navin Field to study Gehringer's style. He mimicked Gehringer and did all right with it. McCoskey is full of boyish enthusiasm and is a model of deportment. He does not drink or smoke. He does not play cards. He was picked up and nursed along by Aloysius Jerome Egan, veteran scout. He was sent to Charlestown, West Virginia, and then to Beaumont. McCoskey was ticketed for return to the Texas League a year ago last spring. Transportation had been arranged, but the day he was to leave for Lakeland, Florida training camp, the young man got 3 hits in an exhibition game and the orders were canceled. Barney McCosky came through in the nick of time. He has been doing that ever since. This is from the Detroit Free Press, Detroit, Michigan, September 13th, 1996. World War II interrupted Tigers center fielder's career by Brian Murphy. Barney McCosky was all ready to get the 1945 World Series championship he and his Detroit Tigers teammates carved after losing the Cincinnati Reds 5 years earlier. The Navy Chief Petty Officer, who is also the Tigers' starting center fielder, was returning from duty in the Pacific Ocean that October when fate stepped to the plate. The Tigers wanted him back for the 1945 series, his son Dennis McCosky recalled Thursday. My father went on a ship with the regular GIs. Well, the damn boat broke down, and by the time they transferred ships and my father made it to San Francisco, the series was over. That would have been his ring. Barney McCosky, whose 11-year major league career spanned 4 teams in both the National and American leagues, died of jaw cancer September 6th at Bon Secours Venice Hospital in Venice, Florida. He was 79. Mr. McCosky played 2 sports at Detroit Southwestern High School and signed a professional baseball contract with the Tigers after graduating in 1935. By 1939, Mr. McCosky was starting in center field for the club. After the 1942 season, Mr. McCosky went to fight in World War II. He missed 3 prime seasons, including Detroit's 7-game World Series victory over the Chicago Cubs in 1945, before returning in 1946. He retired in 1952. Mr. McCosky built a home in Dearborn after the 1940 World Series and married his wife Jane in 1946. He ran Barney McCosky's Party Store on Joy and Southfield Roads from 1953 to 1963. He sold cars until retiring from Les Stanford Chevrolet in Dearborn in 1982. He and his wife lived in Venice, Florida for the past 14 years. It's amazing how well he was known in this area, said Dennis McCosky. When I introduce myself to people, some say, "Oh yeah, I remember the old ball player Barney," and I always say, "Yeah, that's my father." It's been a wonderful experience carrying around his name. Mr. McCosky is also survived by a brother, John, a sister, Frances de Leslie, and 1 grandchild. A funeral mass will be held today at 10 a.m. at Divine Child Church. This is another one of the Irish sports pages featuring Barney McCosky from the Detroit Free Press on September 8th, 1996. It has a little bit more information on it, which I thought was really interesting and wanted to share it with you guys. It states, ex-Tiger McCosky, a Michigan Sports Hall of Famer, dies at 79, by Jerry Green. Barney McCosky was a classic hitter for the Tigers in an era when Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio were young. The scouts discovered this ability when McCosky, who died of cancer in the jaw area at age 79 Friday, was a lad on the sandlots of Detroit 6 decades ago. Golly, I can hit these big time fellows, and I have a hunch they can keep on being tagged. McCosky was quoted as saying in a yellowed 57-year-old clipping of the Detroit News after his major league debut. Of course, it's only one game, but I might be talking too soon. But those two hits and three times up look good. McCosky had broken in on that April opening day at Briggs Stadium in 1939 with a line single to center. He started a two-run rally against the White Sox. The young outfielder continued to look good. Baseball and hitting were natural to him. It was the sport he learned at Gleason's Field on the west side near the family home on South Littlesdale Avenue. Scouts knew he could hit as a two-sport athlete at Southwestern High, and they knew he could hit after the legendary Wish Egan had signed him for the hometown team, and McCosky batted .395 in the Mid-Atlantic League as a teenager just out of high school. Soon he was wearing the Old English D. Hank Greenberg and Charlie Gehringer were his teammates, and by midsummer 1940, the Detroit newspapers were comparing McCosky, just 22, to Ty Cobb in style, speed, and ability. It was McCosky's second season in the majors. He was a contention for the American League batting championship. The Tigers were in a memorable pennant race with the Indians. The Tigers would win the pennant in the September stretch, breaking the Yankees' 1936-39 dynasty. McCosky finished the season batting .340. He did not win the batting championship. Another center fielder, DiMaggio, batted .352, but McCosky tied for the American League lead with 200 hits, a standard that great DiMaggio and Williams and Luke Appling did not achieve, and McCosky led the league with 19 triples. He had an interrupted 11-year major league career. As a fellow rookie with Williams in 1939, he batted .311 before the .340 in 1940. He had become an established major leaguer when Pearl Harbor was bombed in 1941. After the '42 season, McCosky went into the Navy. He served in the Pacific. He missed 3 seasons in what would have been his prime years. He returned to the Tigers in 1946. Early in the season, the Tigers offered Connie Mack, the manager-owner of the Philadelphia Athletics, a choice of one of 8 players for the young third baseman, George Kell. Mr. Mack selected. So now we know how George Kell got into the Detroit Tigers. It was because of this gentleman right here. Anyway, let's continue. McCosky, bothered by back troubles, played for the A's, the Indians, the Reds, and the A's again before his retirement as a player. He had a lifetime batting average of .312. In 1995, he was enshrined in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. He and his wife Jane had lived in retirement in Venice, Florida. He had suffered a stroke last year. Jane McCosky said Saturday her husband was diagnosed with cancer in the jaw just a week ago. He is survived by a son, Dennis, and a grandson, Brian. McCosky's funeral will be conducted Friday in Dearborn. Visitation will be Wednesday and Thursday at the Hal Peterson Funeral Home in Dearborn. By the time the 1994 baseball players' strike occurred, I stopped collecting modern cards and I went directly into vintage. Actually, I started going down that path a little bit before that. So, like 1992 through like 1993 or so, I had a little bit of vintage baseball, but I didn't know really what I was doing. So, by the time 1994 happened, and I saw these cards, I was like, these are really cool. I want to know everything about them. Again, going back to the day when I went to that card shop in the 3rd grade to study math and problem solving skills. Well, yeah, I did find problems. First off, I couldn't find any information on these particular players, and I didn't really know anything about the cards themselves. Gum Ink in Philadelphia. If you guys can kind of see that right down there. It's kind of blurry, but what I thought was kind of interesting too, and I'll get back to this, but at the bottom of these cards, it says Play Ball Sports Hall of Fame. Watch for the famous sports stars, famous fighters, tennis players, football heroes, etc. in this series. Well, that would have been awesome had that actually occurred. And I can only imagine what kind of sports stars that Gum Inc. here would have issued had they done any mock-ups. I would have loved to have seen some of these players. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I think because of World War II. But again, this set is a set of 72. I'm guessing. I think it's 72. Who knows how many players would have actually occurred if this was actually just one series. We can only speculate, to tell you the truth. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about this set is the artwork. And again, when I was like 13, 14, 15 years old, I was going to auctions and seeing these cards. I didn't know anything about the players, but I really, really wanted to learn who they were. And were they good? Because obviously Barney McCosky has a card, and he's got a few cards actually. He's on the 1951 Bowman, and so I tried to look to see where I could find more information on Barney McCosky and other players in this set. The first thing that really kind of caught my eye though was the amazing artwork, and it's still great. It's still awesome. It's just seeing the artwork and the players, I'm like, I gotta like find out who these guys are. And one of the biggest problems was trying to find information. Now, this is prior to the internet, and so if you really kind of think about it, the internet is really only 25 years old as we know it today. And so I had to go to the library to try to find this stuff out and use the microfiche reader, which is a huge pain in the neck. I can't even tell you. And then on top of it, just the limited information right there. Digitizing newspapers is somewhat new. It's still somewhat new. They've done a really great job, but you're still getting just pieces of information. You're not getting like the whole picture here, just bits and pieces of Barney McCoskey's career as the other players as well. And the thing is, like, we're like 80 years removed from when Barney McCoskey played. When I look at cards like this, it takes me back. I'm imagining what it's like to play baseball in the 1930s or 1940s or 1950s just by seeing a card like this. It kind of like takes you back to an era that no longer exists. And so that's one of the magical things, I think, of collecting vintage sports cards. And again, the hobby itself is, I think, a great place for people to talk about the ball players, the cards, what they want in their collection, and just kind of the camaraderie of the hobby itself. And I think it's a great thing. And then again, for me personally, I found the hobby to be a great way to educate myself on things that I should have been educated on and during school and never got that chance. So for me, the hobby is my second education. I really, really wanted to tell you guys about some of the players of the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And not everybody has to be Ted Williams or Joe DiMaggio. Obviously, those guys, they've been talked about a lot. And it's not that I don't like to talk about Joe DiMaggio or Ted Williams, although Ted Williams over here, he's not my favorite ball player. He's not my favorite human being in the world. He's obviously flawed, and to be human is to be flawed. So I get that, but Ted Williams to me really bothers me in a lot of ways. As a person, I think he treated a lot of people like trash, and I obviously I'm very aware of Ted Williams as the person, not the ball player, and a lot of people who I knew Ted Williams, and not everything that they said about him was great. I will talk about Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio. You know, a lot has been said about those guys, so you're not really hearing a lot about, say, guys like Barney McCosky or even stars of that time. I mean, obviously, Barney McCosky was a star. He's just forgotten about 80 years later, which is perfectly normal, to tell you the truth, because we are talking about a huge expanse of time where 3 generations or 4 generations at least have come and gone, and Barney McCoskey has been dead now. He's gone on to the Field of Dreams in 1996. I like to bring up guys like this and teach you about other ball players that may not have been stars or even Hall of Famers that have been forgotten about, because for some strange reason, there's a tier section of the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's very strange to me. I always thought if you're in the Hall of Fame, you're in the Hall of Fame, and you're that good. But apparently, there's Ted Williams types, then you have Chick Haffey types, and then you have George Kell, well, George Kell is an awesome ball player and a great human being too. I've met him several times during his lifetime and had some great conversations. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that there are several layers of the Hall of Fame that shouldn't be, and there are, and I don't know why. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this introduction into Barney McCosky. And again, this card it is kind of like a dream card for me, if you will. I've been looking for this card for like 25 years, and I finally found it. And, it kind of goes to show you, with a little bit of perseverance, don't ever give up on your dreams, whatever they are. If they're trying to acquire a autographed vintage 1941 play ball Barney McCosky, or if you're trying to go back to college or trying to get that dream job, don't give up. Whatever you do, you know, there's a lot of learning experiences here too. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it, as always. Give me a like and subscribe, if you will, and that way other people can hear me rant about players from the past and sports cards and all that, and history. So, again, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, as always, and I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.